Welcome once again. This is Enoch here. You know, the other day I had a conversation with somebody who thought that Jesus actually changed the Old Testament law or changed the Old Testament. And what they meant by that is they said, well, you know, Jesus said, you know, you've heard it said this, but I tell you this. You've heard it said this, but I tell you this, you know. You know, Jesus said, you have heard it said, do not commit adultery. But I tell you that whoever looks upon a woman with lust in his heart has already committed adultery with her in his heart. So Jesus didn't change the Old Testament law, saying, you know, he didn't say, well, you've heard it said, do not commit adultery, but I say it's okay. He didn't say that whatsoever. He took it on a different level. He said, you've heard it said, do not murder, but I say to you that whoever hates his brother, you know, without a cause is a murderer in his heart. Once again, he takes the law. He's not changing that law, do not murder. He didn't say, well, you've heard it said, do not murder, but I tell you, it's okay. No, he didn't say that. He said, basically, this is the law. You're applying it in this particular situation, but you need to apply it on you need to apply it to your entire life. And he also said, and this is a biggie, and this is where it trips a lot of people up. He said, you've heard it said, eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, but I tell you, love your enemies. Now, if you read the law, it does say eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. The law of God given through Moses said eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, and that is justice. Jesus said, but I say to you, love your enemies. So he said, eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, but I say to you, love your enemies. So is he introducing a new concept of loving your enemies? You know, the same law that said eye for an eye, tooth for tooth also said do not hold a grudge. The same law that said eye for an eye, tooth for tooth also said, you know, if you find your enemy's donkey in a field and needs help, don't, help out your enemy. If you find your enemy's, oxen, in need of help out your enemy. Exodus 23 teaches loving your enemies. When Jesus said, I say to you, love your enemies, he wasn't saying anything new. He just kind of summing up what the law already says. The law says, love your neighbor as yourself. And we know that your neighbor is your enemies as well as your friends, right? So when Jesus said, you've heard it say eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, but I tell you, love your enemies, he wasn't negating, he wasn't changing eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. What he was doing was he was straightening people out, because the people back then, what they were doing was they were holding personal grudges. They were trying to take out personal vengeance on people. God said, vengeance is mine. And it's a different levels. There's the level of the personal grudge as opposed to justice. Okay? Justice is justice. Personal grudge is a completely different thing. They were trying to justify their personal grudge against their neighbor by saying eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. You understand? So Jesus was just saying, don't break this law and hide behind this law. Don't break the law saying don't hold a grudge against your neighbor, or don't break this law that says love your neighbor as yourself. Don't break this law which says be good and kind to your neighbor or to your enemy. Don't break that law and hide behind the other law saying, well, you know what, I'm doing that because it says eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. No, Jesus was just bringing clarity. He was bringing balance, and he was trying to tell the people, obey the whole law, not just some of it, or don't just use one part of the law to justify your transgression of the other part. And don't forget, if you like these videos, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Thanks again for watching.